My ex-wife cheated while using drugs with a stranger, and he died in our bed. Email. Hey, true story. My name is Braxton, and I never thought I'd be writing into a channel like this. But after stumbling across your videos late one night when I couldn't sleep, I realized I wasn't the only man who's gone through betrayal and heartbreak at the hands of someone who was supposed to love me. Some of those stories hit me so hard, I had to pause the video just to sit with it. It felt like these men were saying things I had bottled up for years. So here I am. This is the story of how I came home from a work trip, walked into the most devastating moment of my life, and how my ex-wife's choices not only destroyed our marriage, but put our daughter's safety in danger in ways I will never forgive. I'll warn you now, it's a long one. There are layers to what happened, and to explain how it all unfolded, I need to back up a bit and give you some context about my life, my marriage, and what led up to that awful night. Meeting my ex-wife. I met my ex-wife, let's call her Melissa, back in 2013. At the time, I was 26, working my way up in a construction management firm. I wasn't where I wanted to be career-wise, but I had drive, and I was focused. Melissa worked as a receptionist at a dentist's office. She was fun, outgoing, and had this way of making every room light up when she walked in. We met through mutual friends at a 4th of July barbecue. I'll be honest, she wasn't someone I thought would go for me. I've always been more reserved, the kind of guy who'd rather have a beer by the fire pit than be the center of attention. But she came right up to me, introduced herself, and the next thing I knew, we spent the whole evening talking. What stood out to me then, and makes me sick thinking about it now, was how much she emphasized family. She talked about wanting to be a mom, about how important loyalty was to her, about how her parents had been together for 30 years and she wanted that kind of love. It all sounded good to me. We dated for about 1.5 years before I proposed. Things felt right. She was sweet, affectionate, and seemed like she had my back. We got married in 2015, and a couple years later, our daughter was born. That little girl became my entire world. Everything I did, long hours, tough projects, putting up with corporate nonsense, was for her. My career and travel. Now, my job is probably worth explaining because it plays into all of this. I work as a project manager for a developer firm. My role involves overseeing construction projects, doing site visits, and sometimes traveling when we acquire new properties. Most of the time, my travel is local, within a few hours' drive, but occasionally I get sent further out for a week or more. This was the case last year when my company bought an old hotel in Louisiana. The building had been sitting vacant for years, and the plan was to gut it and turn it into apartments. My job was to go down with a small team, measure the entire building, and create a detailed report of its condition. It wasn't glamorous work. A lot of it involved crawling around dusty hallways, sketching layouts, and taking measurements of every nook and cranny. But it was steady, and it paid well enough that Melissa didn't have to work if she didn't want to. By this point, she'd left her receptionist job and was mostly home with our daughter. I'd been on plenty of work trips before, but this one was different. Something felt off in the weeks leading up to it. Signs. Something was wrong. About a month before my Louisiana trip, I noticed Melissa was acting distant. Not outright hostile, but distracted. She spent more time on her phone, stayed up later than usual, and seemed less interested in me. Our intimacy had already slowed down after our daughter was born, but lately it felt almost non-existent. I asked her about it a couple times. She brushed it off, saying she was just tired, stressed, and overwhelmed from being with our daughter all day. I tried to be understanding. Parenting isn't easy, and I figured maybe I wasn't doing enough to lighten her load. But there were other small things. Her phone was always face down. She'd laugh at messages and then quickly close the screen when I walked into the room. One night, I came home from a late meeting and found her pacing in the kitchen, whispering into the phone. When she saw me, she hung up instantly. She claimed it was her sister. Deep down, I think I knew something wasn't right, but denial is powerful. I didn't want to believe the woman I married, the mother of my child, would betray me. The Louisiana trip. Fast forward to my trip. We left on a Monday morning, drove down, and got right to work. The hotel was a nightmare. Mold, broken windows, collapsed ceilings. By day 3, I was exhausted. The one thing keeping me going was knowing I'd be back home with my daughter soon. Melissa and I spoke on the phone a couple times while I was away, but the conversations were short. She sounded distracted, almost annoyed, like me checking in was an inconvenience. Toward the end of the week, our team finished up earlier than expected. Instead of coming back Saturday afternoon like planned, we decided to drive through the night and surprise our families early Saturday morning. It was a long, rough drive, and by the time we pulled into my city, it was around 3 a.m. I was tired, but excited. I thought about how happy my daughter would be to see me in the morning, maybe bringing donuts for breakfast. I thought about crawling into bed and just holding my wife, even if things had been tense. I had no idea what I was about to walk into. Coming home at 3 a.m. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark except for a faint glow from the living room. I quietly unlocked the door and stepped inside. To my shock, my daughter was asleep on the couch. She had a blanket half on her, cartoons still playing softly on the TV. I froze. Why was she out here at 3 in the morning? Melissa never let her sleep outside of her room. My stomach dropped. I gently picked her up and carried her to her bedroom. Once she was tucked in, I noticed something else. The faint thump of music coming from the back of the house, our bedroom. My heart started pounding. I can't explain it, but I knew something wasn't right. The music wasn't loud, but it had that careless, late-night party vibe to it. I walked down the hall, and the closer I got, the more this weird odor hit me. It wasn't just weed, it was something harsher, chemical-like. When I opened the door, the sight nearly made me collapse. The discovery. There they were, my wife Melissa, and some man I had never seen before. Both of them were naked, sprawled across my bed. The man looked off. His skin was discolored, a bluish-gray tint, like something was wrong with him. On the bed beside them was a glass pipe, and another one was on the floor. The whole room smelled toxic, like burnt chemicals and sweat. For a moment, I just stood there. It was like my brain couldn't process it. Then instinct kicked in. I didn't want my daughter to see or hear any of this. I shook Melissa awake. Her eyes fluttered open, bloodshot and glazed. The second she saw me, panic washed over her face. She started stammering. "It's not what it looks like, Braxton. I swear. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." She reached for the man, shaking him, trying to wake him, but he didn't move. At first I thought he was just passed out, but the longer she shook him, the more I realized he wasn't breathing. That man was dead. Melissa completely lost it, sobbing, screaming his name, begging him to wake up. I grabbed her arms, told her to calm down before she woke up our daughter. My own heart was racing, but I knew one thing. We had to call 911. I made the call. Within minutes, police and paramedics showed up. They confirmed what I already knew. The man was gone. The rest of that night is a blur. Questions from police. Melissa crying, insisting she had never done drugs before, that she just tried it this one time. I didn't buy it. Nobody goes from zero to hardcore drugs in one random night. When the dust settled and the body was taken away, Melissa begged me not to leave her. She swore it was a mistake, swore she loved me, swore she could change. She even tried to hug me, still half naked and reeking of chemicals. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I looked at her, and all I could see was a stranger, a selfish, reckless stranger who not only cheated on me, but put our daughter's safety at risk. The divorce. Within a week, I had packed my things and moved into a small apartment with my daughter. I filed for divorce immediately. The courts didn't take long to see that Melissa was a danger to our child. Even before the divorce was finalized, I was granted full custody. That was the one silver lining in all of this. My daughter is safe with me. She's thriving, but she still asks about her mom sometimes, and I don't know what to say. How do you explain to a little girl that her mom chose drugs and strangers over her own family? Melissa, for her part, tried to fight the divorce at first. She begged, pleaded, promised rehab, but when she realized I wasn't budging, she seemed to give up. Last I heard, she's bouncing between friends' couches. I'll save the details of what happened after for another email, because there's a lot more to it. Custody battles, fallout with her family, how I've been rebuilding my life. But I'll end this one by saying, no man ever thinks it'll be him. We think cheating happens to other people. We think drugs happen to other families. But the truth is, it can happen to anyone. And when it does, you don't get time to process. You just have to act. I acted by protecting my daughter, and that's the only thing that matters to me now. Thanks for reading my story and for giving guys like me a place to be heard. I'll follow up soon with part 2. Sincerely, Braxton. Follow up. Life after my ex-wife's betrayal. Email. Hey, true story. This is Braxton again. I wrote you not long ago about how I came home early from a work trip, found my wife naked in our bed with a stranger, and discovered they'd been using drugs while my daughter was asleep in the living room. That man overdosed and died right there in my house. It was the most surreal, devastating moment of my life. When I sent that first email, I promised I'd follow up with what happened after. Well, here it is. This is the story of the fallout, the custody battle, the family drama, and what life has been like for me and my daughter since then. The morning after. After the paramedics left and the police finished their questions, I stayed up until the sun rose. Melissa sat at the kitchen table crying quietly, her hair a mess, mascara streaked down her face. I didn't say much to her. At that point, I didn't even want to look at her. When my daughter woke up, I acted like nothing had happened. I made her pancakes, poured her juice, and tried to keep my voice steady. She was too young to understand, thank God. I decided then and there that whatever it took, she wasn't going to be exposed to that chaos again. As soon as the courthouse opened Monday morning, I contacted an attorney. I told him everything about the cheating, the drugs, and the overdose. He didn't even hesitate. Braxton, he said, you need to file for divorce and file for emergency custody immediately. Moving out. Within a week, I had packed mine and my daughter's things and moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment. It wasn't much, dated carpet, a leaky faucet, and the kind of neighbors who smoke on their balconies, but it was ours. It was safe. I remember carrying my daughter's little pink bed frame up those stairs and thinking, this is it. This is home now. She was too young to fully grasp what was happening, but kids are perceptive. She asked, why isn't Mommy coming? I just told her Mommy needs to take some time, but you're staying with Daddy. That broke me inside, but I knew I had to stay strong in front of her. The legal battle. My attorney filed for emergency custody, citing Melissa's drug use and the overdose incident. We attached the police report and statements from the paramedics. The judge didn't need much convincing. I was granted temporary full custody pending the divorce. Melissa, of course, was furious. She showed up to the first hearing looking like a wreck, skinny, pale, eyes sunken. She tried to argue that it was a one-time mistake and that she wasn't a danger to our daughter, but the judge wasn't buying it. Her own lawyer looked uncomfortable as she rambled about how she was pressured into trying drugs that night, how she didn't even know the guy had that stuff with him, and how she was just lonely while I was gone. I sat there thinking, lonely? So lonely you invited a stranger into our bed while our daughter slept in the next room? The judge granted me full custody on the spot, with supervised visitation for Melissa until she could prove she was clean. Melissa's decline. The months that followed were rough. Melissa spiraled hard. She'd show up to visitation high or not show up at all. One time, the visitation center staff called me because she was nodding off mid-visit. That was the last straw. The court suspended her visitation altogether. I tried in the beginning to be somewhat compassionate. After all, this was the woman I once loved, the mother of my child. I encouraged her to get help, go to rehab, show the court she was trying, but she didn't. Instead, she surrounded herself with the same kind of people she had brought into my house that night. Her family reached out to me multiple times, asking if I'd reconsider letting her see our daughter just for a few hours. I stood firm. No, I told them. Until she's clean and stable, there's no way. Some of them supported me. Others accused me of being cold and vindictive. I had to learn to tune that out. Explaining to my daughter. This has been the hardest part. My daughter asks about her mom more often than I'd like to admit. At bedtime, she'll say, "Why doesn't mommy live here?" Or, "When can I see mommy again?" I've had to walk a fine line, being honest without burdening her with details she's too young to process. I tell her, "Mommy made some unhealthy choices, and until she gets better, it's not safe." She usually accepts that, though I can see the sadness in her eyes. I've made it my mission to make sure she never feels unloved. Every school event, every bedtime story, every scraped knee, I'm there. I don't care how tired I am from work. She's my number one priority, work and rebuilding. Speaking of work, the divorce forced me to reevaluate a lot. I realized that while my career was stable, the travel aspect had contributed, at least indirectly, to Melissa's spiral. Not that I blame myself for her choices, but being gone created opportunities for her to do what she did. I sat down with my boss and explained my situation. Thankfully, he was understanding. He agreed to limit my overnight trips and keep me on more local projects. That's been a blessing. It means I can be home every night, making dinner with my daughter, tucking her into bed. Financially, things were tight at first. Between lawyer fees, rent, and furnishing the new apartment, my savings took a hit. But I've been budgeting hard, and little by little, I'm climbing out of the hole. The divorce finalized. The divorce was finalized about 6 months after that awful night. The judge granted me full legal and physical custody. Melissa didn't even contest it by the end. She signed the papers looking like a shell of the woman I married. I felt relief. Not joy, not celebration, just relief. Relief that it was over. Relief that I could close that chapter and focus entirely on my daughter. Dating again? People sometimes ask if I'm dating again. The short answer, not really. I've gone on a couple casual dates, but my heart just isn't in it. Not yet. Right now, my energy is on being the best father I can be. That said, I won't lie. I do get lonely sometimes. Nights can feel long when the house is quiet and I'm staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. But I'd rather be lonely than bring the wrong person into my daughter's life. Melissa's latest situation. From what I've heard through mutual acquaintances, Melissa is still using. She's been in and out of detox programs, but never sticks with them. Last I heard, she was living with some guy who's also deep into that lifestyle. Her parents, who once defended her, have since pulled back. They told me privately they're grateful I have custody because they know their daughter isn't capable of caring for a child right now. It's a sad thing, but it reaffirmed to me that I made the right choice. Small victories. In the midst of all this chaos, there have been moments of light, like the time my daughter brought home a drawing from school of me and Daddy at the park, just the two of us, or when she told me, "Daddy, I feel safe with you." Those moments fuel me. They remind me that even though I lost my marriage, I didn't lose the thing that matters most, my role as her father. I've also started to rediscover myself. I picked up hobbies I hadn't touched in years, fishing, jogging, even learning to cook more than just the basics. My daughter loves helping me in the kitchen. We make pancakes on Saturday mornings and pretend we're running a little diner. It sounds small, but those rituals have been healing. Lessons learned. If there's one thing this nightmare taught me, it's this. People can hide who they really are, even for years. Melissa wasn't always this person, at least not outwardly. But somewhere along the way, she chose a path of self-destruction, and I couldn't save her. I've learned that love doesn't mean tolerating betrayal. Forgiveness doesn't mean subjecting yourself or your child to danger. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, looking forward. It's been about a year now since that night. My daughter and I are in a much better place. Our apartment feels like home. I've gotten used to cooking, cleaning, working, and parenting solo. It's not easy, but it's doable. As for Melissa, who knows? Maybe one day she'll get clean. Maybe one day she'll want to be part of our daughter's life in a healthy way. But until then, the door is closed. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even heartbroken. I'm just done. Final thoughts. When I look back, I still feel disbelief sometimes. Like, did that really happen? Did I really come home to find a stranger dead in my bed? It feels like something out of a bad movie. But it did happen. And I survived it. More importantly, my daughter survived it. If there's anyone listening who's going through something similar, my advice is simple. Protect your kids, protect your peace, and don't let anyone convince you to stay in a situation that's toxic. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. Thank you for letting me share part 2 of my story. Writing this has been cathartic, and if it helps even one man out there realize he's not alone, then it's worth it. Sincerely,